Hi, this is Tavis Piatoli with the company My Sports Dietitian, and today we're going to talk about nutrition to manage inflammation. Inflammation is really discussed a lot today in the world of science and medical care. We don't think about too much about it when it comes to athletes and performance and how that impacts performance. You hear it a lot more on the injury side of things. But first of all, what is inflammation? And it's kind of a cascade of different things that happen throughout the body, but it's typically the act of inflaming or the state of being inflamed. That it could be, localized protection of the tissue or irritation or injury. It could be an infection. It could be characterized by pain. Sometimes it's just redness or swelling in an irritated area. And it also could be a loss of function and mobility due to a surgery. So there's a lot of different things that cause inflammation. And it's okay. It's okay to have a little bit of inflammation because it's actually a protective mechanism. It's a very important component of our immune system. For our immune system to recover, it's going to go through a little bit of inflammation, but our body has a defense system that actually helps fight against infection and irritants and toxins, not just by things we consume, but also by things that we breathe in and inhale on a daily basis. So we can typically identify this in a localized area, maybe because it's red or swollen. Maybe it's hot, it's a warm area. Maybe there's pain in a specific area. Maybe it's just muscle soreness, which is pretty common in athletes after an exercise session, after a hard training session. We're going to be tired. Our immune system is going to be compromised. Our muscles are going to be sore. So we have to figure out how do we, maybe minimize that. We can't get rid of it. Also, it indicates that there are water and proteins that enter those injured areas, that they also bring antibodies and white blood cells to deal with those irritants. So again, it's a normal process. We want this process to happen. We don't want to avoid it. When does inflammation become harmful? So, first of all, there's a natural balance of the immune system, and we can disrupt that and shift that into a state of chronic inflammation. That happens when we combine chronic training with a poor diet, with lack of sleep and recovery. So when we're not fueling the body well and we're not getting enough rest and maybe we live in an environment where there's a lot of toxins and we just don't recover well and so we're still trying to train hard, that's going to create not only a weakened immune system, but it's going to increase our risk for injury and more inflammation. Also, if we have a lifestyle that, again, as we've discussed, exposes us to toxins and irritants like that could cause low-grade infections, food allergens, food inflammatory foods, that's another cause. And then, of course, chronic and uncontrolled inflammation is destructive and linked to a multitude of health problems. So as you can see, when we look at inflammation, it doesn't just affect, the parts of the body that have pain or soreness. It slowly affects a lot of different areas where it could contribute to obesity, diabetes, things like Alzheimer's disease, as plaque builds up in the brain. That creates a lot of different problems from Alzheimer's to dementia. But most importantly, or at least most relevant to an athlete, you're going to see more inflammation, especially the young athletes today, more infection, more injury, more joint pain. You're really going to see cardiovascular disease in a young athlete. Probably see some asthma and allergies that affect the immune system, but all of these things are impacted by inflammation. So let's really get into the nuts and bolts of this presentation. Let's talk about some pro-inflammatory foods. These are foods or strategies that create inflammation in the body. First, it's excessive calorie intake. So if we're just consuming too many calories on a daily basis, obviously that leads to weight gain. And for some athletes, you don't see this often in wrestlers, maybe some in the heavyweight category, but you just look at a young athlete, high school and college, there's going to be some athletes that are obese, overweight, due to excessive calorie intake. Alcohol. I know in our high school athletes, the young ones hopefully are not consuming, but there are high school athletes and high school students that consume alcohol. And we just want to make sure that is under control. One night of heavy drinking is going to cause some serious inflammation, muscle loss, muscle damage, and make it hard for that athlete to recover. Sugar, processed foods, we'll go into those in more details coming up, but saturated fats, trans fats, nitrates, and for that small percentage of population, I think it's around 5% that have a gluten insensitivity or gluten sensitivity, that are sensitive to gluten, they would want to avoid gluten. All right, so let's talk about sugar and processed foods. Which ones are the ones that we just want to limit? I would never tell someone to not eat these foods. You have to avoid them at all times because for most people that's pretty challenging. And the goal for a young athlete is to work on correcting habits. If they're consuming this 50% of the time, then we want to maybe try to get it down to 30 and then 20 and then 10. But these are refined grains like white bread, crackers, baked goods, regular sodas, punch, flavored drinks, like frozen coffees, pastries and cookies. So I think you guys get the understanding of where a lot of these foods come from. Sugary cereals or cereal bars. There's a lot of cereal bars, I'll focus on that are marketed as really well. Nutrigrain, Nutri in grain, you think by the sound of it, it's healthy. Mostly sugar, no fiber, white flour, no protein, very little healthy fats. So it's a very sugary packed bar, which most of those type of cereal bars you see marketed to kids with fancy looking cartoons or movie actors on the front of those that attract that young market. Canned fruits that are typically packed in sugars, and a lot of our frozen dinners use processed ingredients. All right, let's look at fats. There's a lot of mixed information on fats, and the research that I've seen and some of the presentation I've seen in this area really, circulate around saturated fat having one of the biggest impacts on increasing inflammation, as well as trans fats. Trans fats, the USDA has pretty much advocated we avoid using trans fats in food as much as possible, especially if you're buying from a fast food place. I think by 2018 we have to eliminate all trans fats in foods. But first on saturated fats, this is butter, whole milk, full fat cheese, your high fat beef, things like a ribeye steak, fast food beef, full fat cream. Too much consumption of these will increase inflammation. That has been proven in multiple studies. It's not that you can have butter or you can't drink whole milk. It's just we want to watch our consumption throughout the day. Trans fats, these are baked goods like pie crust, cookies, pies, cakes that are made with things like shortening or margarine that are still using trans fats. Obviously, a lot of fried foods are going to be cooked in oils that have trans fats, or they're breaded in some type of baked good that has trans fats, and then cooked in a vegetable type oil. So again, limiting these to 10% to 15% of the diet is going to be a good strategy. As we've talked about in previous presentations about these are your state championship fats, district, missed the playoff fats. You want to kind of still follow those same guidelines as much as possible so we manage inflammation. All right. Nitrates and nitrites. These are processed meats: sausage, salami, pastrami, bacon. Even our deli meats like turkey and ham, which are lean. And as you can see to the right, they use nitrites. And this is a flavor enhancer. It's also a preservative that keeps the products fresh. But a lot of products today, and people are realizing that they don't want those type of foods. The press and the media has done a good job of at least instigating, or not instigating, but at least informing us about the potential harm of consuming these in large amounts and for a long period of time. It's not that eating a couple of pieces of bacon is going to cause cancer, but if you're eating a pound of bacon every day for a couple of years, you're probably going to have some problems at some point. So it's just about managing that with some balance. There's a lot of uncured foods that you can buy. So as you can see here, there's uncured bacon, and there's a lot of companies shifting to these. Even some of your generic brands, like your Walmart brands or your Sam's brands. I saw the other day in Sam's, their Maker's Mark brand, they have uncured ham. So there's a lot of options. Uncured bacon. So here's uncured pastrami. So as you can see, that's what you want to look for in those labels. No nitrites or nitrates added. And basically it's going to say uncured on it as well. All right, so what are the anti-inflammatory foods? First, let's talk about fat. Sometimes fat is perceived as unhealthy. Fat is the good guy. We need fat, not for just, we talked about that in a section on fat, but let's talk about which fats specifically have anti-inflammatory properties. And there's more, but these are the ones that we wanted to focus on the most. Your fatty fish, which has omega-3 fats, salmon, tuna, fish oil, halibut. So that would be like a fish oil supplement. But of course, if you're eating things like salmon and tuna, you're getting good omega-3 rich foods there. Extra virgin olive oil has been shown to moderately decrease inflammation. You don't want to use it to cook. If you're going to cook, use avocado oil. It has a better high temperature point. It won't break down. If you're going to use extra virgin olive oil, use it to add on your foods, like a salad, maybe some vegetables if you're trying to gain weight, etc. Avocados, walnuts, almonds, almond butter, and dark chocolate. So if you like dark chocolate, make sure it has 70% more cocoa. It has good quality fat. Herbs and spices. I call them like the hidden medicine cabinet. We use them in some cases, but we don't think of these foods having medicinal properties. Things like fresh garlic, ginger, or ginger root, basil, oregano, thyme, capsaicin, like a red pepper, chili pepper, spicy. They have anti-inflammatory properties. And then really one of the most powerful ones is turmeric or curcumin. This is typically if you like a chicken curry, this will be in that, the ingredients will be in that spice. And a lot of Indian populations have used curry in their dishes. They have a pretty low level of inflammation in certain populations of India. At the same time, these are typically used in supplement form, which we'll talk about shortly. Okay, let's talk about probiotics. We hear a lot about probiotic supplements, but there's a lot of probiotic-rich foods, whether you get them from supplements or fermented foods. These help build immunity in the stomach. If someone's on antibiotics, it kind of destroys and reduces that gut bacteria. So healthy gut bacteria has been shown to help reduce and keep inflammation at bay. And these are things like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kombucha, which we're starting to hear a lot about with people making their own kombucha or drinking kombucha-based drinks, natto, and coconut kefir. Basically, kefir is fermented milk. They sell it in the store. Some people like the taste, some people don't, but it's a great way to boost probiotic health in the stomach. And then, of course, vitamins and minerals. There's certain vitamins and minerals that, especially fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are some of your best natural anti-inflammatory rich foods. When we're looking at certain fruits, it's berries, it's tart cherries, it's cherry juice, which a lot of athletic teams today are using as a recovery drink. Pineapples, which have bromelain. Apples, especially the skin of an apple, has anti-inflammatory based properties. Vegetables, dark greens and carrots, so things like spinach, your broccoli are great anti-inflammatory rich foods. And then foods rich in zinc. Zinc is not a common deficiency, but it's a deficiency that is a little more common than people think because we're not eating a lot of zinc rich foods, especially people that might be vegetarians. Oysters, wheat germ, spinach, beef and lamb, cashews are all very dense and rich in zinc-based foods. So, increasing fruit and vegetable intake is a very important piece, but making sure we eat a wide variety of foods, from this natural food list. Then finally, anti-inflammatory dietary supplements. I'm a big fan. These are the first two that I usually have fish oil in every athlete's protocol. And it's very versatile, and it's one of the benefits has been shown in the science is to reduce inflammation. Problem with 99% of the fish oil is I never recommend you buy it on the shelf. We'll talk about that in the next topic next week on dietary supplements. But here's a great, in my opinion, the gold standard of fish oil is Nordic Naturals. They also have two products that are NSF or sport certified. So whether or not you're high school or collegiate, I know at the collegiate level you guys are getting randomly tested for banned substances, but these are NSF products are clean. They're free of banned substances, and what Nordic does is they use a triglyceride-based fish oil, which is optimal for absorption. So 2 to 4 grams per day is my recommendation in the capsule form. That's about 4 to 6 capsules per day. You might not like to take that many, but it's very beneficial to at least get 4 in. Or if you like the teaspoon, if you like the liquid, which I personally prefer the liquid because it's highly concentrated, 1 to 1.5 teaspoons per day. Turmeric extract, as we talked about earlier in the spice category, it's curcumin. Natural anti-inflammatory. There's been great studies that have shown to reduce muscle damage, muscle soreness, and also inflammation in a variety of areas. They also use this and fish oil to help with reducing concussion pain or concussion in plaque buildup in the brain after a concussion, in trauma and inflammation. So about 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams per day. The key with turmeric extract is you just don't want to go buy any that's sitting on the shelf. It has to say phytosome, and that phytosome should come from Mariva. If you see on the right, if you see that Mariva link on the back or anywhere on there, that's a legitimate good brand. Here's why. With turmeric extract, it typically doesn't get absorbed. It's got a very poor bioavailability. When it's connected to the vitosome, that significantly increases the bioavailability in the blood. It helps cross the blood-brain barrier, helps get into our bloodstream, and it becomes more effective. So there's a lot of less expensive and cheap sources of turmeric extract than, that's why a lot of the products say there's so many products, it's hard to really truly get an understanding of how to choose the right brand. But this is a very inexpensive product. It's like $13 online for a month supply. You can't beat it. It's the one I personally take. And I kind of gave you some ideas of what to look for in a bottle. Not all the bottles, so if you like this brand, that's fine. Not all the bottles will have the logo that says Mariva. So I kind of put another little slide or a little piece there, image that shows it says turmeric phytosome curcumin. So you know it has the phytosome and it comes from Mariva. And then finally, cherry juice. Big fan of cherry juice. A lot of college and professional teams have, especially your big D1 schools, are giving this to athletes after their workouts, and it's because the research has shown time and time again. Not only does it help with inflammation, but it helps with muscle damage. So as you disrupt tissue after a hard training session, it helps reduce the amount of damage that occurs for those next 24 to 48 to 72 hours. So Cherry Bundy's one brand. There's Cherish. There's a bunch of different brands out there. What I like about Cherry Bundy is they have a couple of different options. When some are in protein enhanced, some are just pure cherry juice, light with less calories. So it gives you a bunch of options to choose from. And then finally, probiotic. So we talked about that in a couple of slides previously when we looked at some natural foods. Obviously, taking a good probiotic supplement. If you don't eat those foods, maybe you don't like sauerkraut or you don't like yogurt or kefir. So these are some options for you to just take a good probiotic. I'm a big fan of Thorne. Thorne does a great job with making supplements. Number one, because they use the right raw materials. Number two, they do a nice job with the formulations of those products. So you can go to thorne.com if you like that. And then finally, as always, you can reach out to me if you have questions about any of the content. tpiatoli at mysportsd.com. Our topic 13, as we're making a lot of progress with this program, and we appreciate all the feedback from the wrestling coaches and wrestlers and anyone who has watched this. But topic 13 will be, do I need supplements to boost performance, and what works and what doesn't? And then, if you haven't already, please check out Clint Wattenberg's book, Performance Nutrition for Wrestlers, a practical handbook to mastering the sports complex nutrition puzzle. You can get that at mywrestlingnutrition.com or mysportsdconnect.com. There is not a resource for coaches or wrestlers or anyone involved in the wrestling community that is better on nutrition than Clint. As you guys may know or may not know, Clint is a sports dietitian and was an All-American wrestler at Cornell. So as always, thank you guys for following and listening and staying in touch. We'll see you guys in topic 13.